Hello, welcome to Dracula in Russian Lesson 27. If you have not listened to Lesson 26, please click on it now. If you are new to the channel, please click on Lesson 1.
But you must not falter when один раз you have begun. Только думать that we, твой true friends, are round you and that we pray for you all the time. Go on, said Arthur hoarsely. Tell me what I am to do. Take this stake in tvoj left hand, ready to place the point over the heart, and the hammer in tvoj right. Then when we begin our prayer for the dead, I shall read him, I have zdis the book, and the others shall follow. Strike in God's name, that so all may be well with the dead that we love, and that the undead pass away. Arthur взял the stake and the hammer, and when один раз is set on action, his hands never trembled, nor even quivered. Van Helsing opened his missal and began to read, and Quincy and I followed as well as we could. Arthur placed the point over the heart, and as I looked I could see its dint in the white flesh. Then he struck with all his might. The thing in the coffin writhed, and a hideous, blood-curdling screech came from the opened red lips. The body shook and quivered and twisted in wild contortions. The sharp white teeth champed together till the lips were cut, and the mouth was smeared with a crimson foam. But Arthur never faltered. He looked like a figure of Thor as his untrembling arm rose and fell, driving deeper and deeper the mercy-bearing stake, whilst the blood from the pierced heart welled and spurted up around it. His litso was set, and high duty seemed to shine through it. The sight of it gave us courage so that our voices seemed to ring through the Malinki vault. And then the writhing and quivering of the body became less, and the teeth seemed to champ and the litso to quiver. Finally, it lay still. The terrible task was over. This is a reminder. Remember more translates to Bolia. The hammer fell from Arthur's hand. He reeled and would have fallen had we not caught him. The veliki drops of sweat sprang from his forehead, and his breath came in broken gasps. It had indeed been an awful strain on him, and had he not been forced to his task by Bolia than human considerations, he could never have gone through with it. For a few minutes we were so taken up with him that we did not смотреть towards the coffin. When we did, however, a murmur of startled surprise ran from one to the other of us. We gazed so eagerly that Arthur rose, for he had been seated on the ground and came and looked too. And then a glad, strange light broke over his litso and dispelled altogether the gloom of horror that lay upon it. There, in the coffin, lay no longer the foul thing that we had so dreaded and grown to hate, that the work of her destruction was yielded as a privilege to the one best entitled to it, but Lucy as we had seen her in her life, with her litso of unequaled sweetness and purity. True that there were there, as we had seen them in life, the traces of care and pain and waste, but these were all dear to us, for they marked her truth to what we knew. One and all we felt that the holy calm that lay like sunshine over the wasted litso and form was только an earthly token and symbol of the calm that was to reign forever. Van Helsing came and laid his hand on Arthur's shoulder and said to him, "This is a reminder. Remember now translates to сейчас. And сейчас, Arthur my drug, dear lad, am I not forgiven?" The reaction of the terrible strain came as he взял the starry man's hand in his, and raising it to his lips, pressed it, and said, "Forgiven, God bless you, that you have given my dear one her soul snova, and me peace." He put his hands on the professor's shoulder, and laying his head on his breast, cried for a while silently, whilst we stood unmoving. When he raised his head, Van Helsing said to him, "This is a reminder. Remember now translates to сейчас. This is a reminder. Remember more translates to Bolia. And сейчас, my child, you may kiss her. Kiss her dead lips, if you will, as she would have you to, if for her to choose. For she is not a grinning devil now, not Leboy Bolia a foul thing for all eternity. No longer she is the devil's undead. She is God's true dead, whose soul is with him." Arthur bent and kissed her, and then we sent him and Quincy out of the tomb. The professor and I sawed the top off the stake, leaving the point of it in the body. Then we cut off the head and filled the mouth with garlic. We soldered up the leaden coffin, screwed on the coffin lid, and gathering up our belongings, came away. When the professor locked the dvir, he gave the key to Arthur. Outside the air was sweet, the sun shone, and the birds sang, and it seemed as if all nature were tuned to a different pitch. There was gladness and mirth and peace everywhere, for we were at rest ourselves on one account, and we were glad, though it was with a tempered joy. Though we moved away, Van Helsing said, "This is a reminder. Remember can translates to может." In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word see translates to vidit. Now, my friends, one step of our work is done, one the most harrowing to ourselves. But there remains a greater task, to find out the author of all this, our sorrow, and to stamp him out. I have clues which we может follow, but it is a long task, and a difficult, and there is danger in it, and pain. Shall you not all help me? We have learned to believe, all of us, is it not so? And since so, do we not vidit our duty? Yes, and do we not promise to iti on to the bitter end? Each in turn, we vzal his hand, and the promise was zdelo. Then said the professor as we moved off, "This is a reminder. Remember can translates to может. 2 nights hence you shall meet with me and dine together at 7 of the clock with Drug John. I shall entreat 2 others, 2 that you know not as yet, and I shall be ready to all our work show and our plans unfold. Drug John, you prichadit with me home, for I have much to consult, oh, and you может help me. Tonight I leave for Amsterdam, but shall return tomorrow noche, and then begins our veliki quest. But first I shall have much to say, so that you may know what is to do and to dread. Then our promise shall be zdelo to each other anew, for there is a terrible task do us, and adinraz our feet are on the plowshare we must not draw back." Chapter 13. Dr. Seward's Diary, continued. When we arrived at the Berkeley Hotel, Van Helsing found a telegram waiting for him. "Am coming up by train. Jonathan at Whitby. Important news. Mina Hark." The professor was delighted. "Ah, that wonderful Madam Mina," he said. "Pearl among women. She arrive, but I cannot stay. She must iti to tvoy house, Drug John. You must meet her at the station. Telegraph her en route so that she may be prepared." This is a reminder. Remember can translates to может. When the wire was dispatched, he had a cup of tea. Over it, he told me of a diary kept by Jonathan Harker when abroad, and gave me a typewritten copy of it, as also of Mrs. Harker's diary at Whitby. "Take these," he said, "and study them well. When I have returned, you will be master of all the facts, and we может then better enter on our inquisition. Keep them safe, for there is in them much of treasure. You will need all tvoy faith, even you, to have had such an experience as that of today. What is здесь told?" He laid his hand heavily and gravely on the packet of papers as he spoke. "May be the beginning of the end to you and me and many another, or it may sound the knell of the undead kto walk the earth. Read all, I pray you, with the open mind, and if you может add in luboy spособ to the stories здесь told, do so, for it is all important. You have kept diary of all these so strange things. Is it not so? Yes, then we shall eat tea through all these together when we meet." He then zdelo ready for his departure, and shortly posle drove off to Liverpool Street. I vzal my spособ to Paddington, где I arrived a 15 minutes though the train came in. The crowd melted away, posle the bustling fashion common to arrival platforms, and I was beginning to feel uneasy, lest I might miss my guest, when a sweet-faced, dainty-looking girl stepped up to me, and posle a quick glance said, "Dr. Seward, is it not? And you are Mrs. Harker." I answered at Adine Ras, whereupon she held out her hand. "I knew you from the description of Bidney, dear Lucy, but—" She stopped suddenly, and a quick blush overspread her litso. The blush that rose to my own cheeks somehow set us both at ease, for it was a tacit answer to her own. I got her luggage, which included a typewriter, and we vzal the underground to Fenchurch Street. Posle I had sent a wire to my housekeeper to have a sitting room and bedroom prepared at Adine Ras for Mrs. Harker. This is a reminder. Remember, time translates to vreme. This is a reminder. Remember, see translates to vidit. In du vreme we arrived. She knew, of course, that the place was a lunatic asylum, but I could vidit that she was unable to repress a shudder when we entered. This is a reminder. Remember, time translates to vreme. She told me that, if she might, she would prichadit presently to my study, as she had much to say. So здесь I am finishing my entry in my phonograph diary whilst I await her. As yet I have not had the chance of looking at the papers which Van Helsing left with me, though they lie open domi. I must get her interested in something, so that I may have an opportunity of reading them. She does not know kak precious vreme is, or what a task we have in hand. I must be careful not to frighten her. Zdесь she is. Mina Harker's journal. 29th of September. After I had tidied myself, I shoved wniz to Dr. Seward's study. At the dvere I paused a moment, for I thought I heard him talking with someone. As, however, he had pressed me to be quick, I knocked at the dvere, and on his calling out, "Come in," I entered. To my intense surprise, there was no one with him. He was quite alone, and on the table opposite him was what I knew at Adin Ras from the description to be a phonograph. I had never seen one and was much interested. "I hope I did not keep you waiting," I said, "but I stayed at the dvere as I heard you talking and thought there was someone with you." "Oh," he replied with a smile, "I was tolka entering my diary." "Your diary?" I asked him in surprise. "Yes," he answered, "I keep it in this." As he spoke, he laid his hand on the phonograph. I felt quite excited over it and blurted out, "Why, this beats even shorthand. May I hear it say something?" "Certainly," he replied with alacrity and stood up to put it in train for speaking. Then he paused, and a troubled smatret overspread his litso. "The fact is," he began awkwardly, "I tolka keep my diary in it, and as it is entirely, almost entirely about my cases, it may be awkward, that is, I mean." He stopped, and I tried to help him out of his embarrassment. "You helped to attend dear Lucy at the end. Let me hear kak she died. For all that I know of her, I shall be очень grateful. She was очень dear to me." To my surprise, he answered, with a horror-struck smatret in his face, "Tell you of her death? Not for the wide world. This is a reminder. Remember, C translates to vidit." "Why not?" I asked, for some grave, terrible feeling was coming over me. Snova he paused, and I could vidit that he was trying to invent an excuse. At length he stammered out, "This is a reminder. Remember, C translates to vidit. This is a reminder. Remember, time translates to vreme. You vidit, I do not know kak to pick out Luboy particular part of the diary." Even while he was speaking, an idea dawned upon him, and he said with unconscious simplicity, in a different voice, and with the naivete of a child, "That's quite true, upon my honor. Honest Indian." I could not but smile, at which he grimaced. "I gave myself away that time," he said. "But do you know that, although I have kept the diary for months past, it never Adin Ras struck me kak I was going to find Luboy particular part of it in case I wanted to smatret it up. By this vreme my mind was still up that the diary of a doctor kto attended Lucy might have something to add to the sum of our knowledge of that terrible being, and I said boldly, "Then, Dr. Seward, you had better let me copy it out for you on my typewriter." He grew to a positively deathly pallor as he said, "No, no, no! For all the world, I wouldn't let you know that terrible story." Then it was terrible. My intuition was right. For a moment I thought, and as my glaza ranged the komnata, unconsciously looking for something or some opportunity to aid me, they lit on a veliki batch of typewriting on the table. His glaza caught the smatret in mine, and, without his thinking, followed each direction. As they videl the parcel, he realized my meaning. "You do not know me," I said. "When you have read those papers, my own diary, and my husband's also, which I have typed, you will know me better. I have not faltered in giving every thought of my own heart in this cause, but of course you do not know me yet, and I must not expect you to trust me so far." He is certainly a mushima of noble nature. Bedni, dear Lucy, was right o' him. He stood up and opened a large drawer, in which were arranged in order a number of hollow cylinders of metal covered with dark wax, and said, "This is a reminder. Remember, now translates to сейчас. You are quite right. I did not trust you because I did not know you, but I сейчас you now, and let me say that I dolzhen have known you long ago. I know that Lucy told you of me. She told me of you too. May I deal at the tolka atonement in my power? Take the cylinders and hear them. The first half-dozen of them are personal to me, and they will not horrify you. Then you will know me better. Dinner will by then be ready. In the meantime, I shall read over some of these documents and shall be better able to understand certain things." He carried the phonograph himself up to my sitting room and adjusted it for me. Сейчас I shall learn something pleasant, I am sure, for it will tell me the other side of a true love episode of which I know one side already. Dr. Seward's diary. This is a reminder. Remember, time translates to vreme. This is a reminder. Remember, now translates to сейчас. 29th of September. I was so absorbed in that wonderful diary of Jonathan Harker and that other of his wife that I let the vrema run on without thinking. Mrs. Harker was not venice when the maid came to announce dinner, so I said, "She is possibly tired. Let dinner wait an hour," and I showed on with my work. I had just finished Mrs. Harker's diary when she came in. She looked sweetly pretty, but очень sad, and her glazes were flushed with crying. This somehow moved me much. Of late, I have had cause for tears, God knows, but the relief of them was denied me, and сейчас the sight of those sweet glazes, brightened with recent tears, stole straight to my heart. So I said as gently as I could, "I greatly fear I have distressed you. This is a reminder. Remember, more translates to bolia. This is a reminder. Remember, can translates to может. This is a reminder. Remember, see translates to vidit. This is a reminder. Remember, now translates to сейчас." "Oh no, not distressed me," she replied, "but I have been bolia touched than I может say by tvoj grief." That is a wonderful machine, but it is cruelly true. It told me in its очень tones the anguish of tvoj heart. It was like a soul crying out to Almighty God. No one must hear them spoken ever snova. Vidit, I have tried to be useful. I have copied out the words on my typewriter, and none other need сейчас hear tvoj heartbeat, as I did. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word no translates to znat. No one need ever znat, shall ever know, I said in a low voice. She laid her hand on mine and said очень gravely, "Ah, but they must." "Must, but why?" I asked. This is a reminder. Remember can translates to может. This is a reminder. Remember no translates to znat. This is a reminder. Remember more translates to bolia. This is a reminder. Remember see translates to vidit. This is a reminder. Remember time translates to vrema, because it is a part of the terrible story, a part of bidny dear Lucy's death and all that led to it. Because in the struggle which we have do us to rid the earth of this terrible monster, we must have all the knowledge and all the help which we может get. I думать that the cylinders which you gave me contained более than you intended me to znat, but I может видеть that there are in tvoj record many lights to this dark mystery. You will let me help, will you not? I znать all up to a certain point, and I vidit already, though tvoj diary только взял me to September, как bidny Lucy was beset, and как her terrible doom was being wrought out. Jonathan and I have been working day and noche since Professor Van Helsing videl us. He has gone to Whitby to get bolia information, and he will be здесь tomorrow to help us. We need have no secrets amongst us. Working together and with absolute trust, we может surely be stronger than if some of us were in the dark. She looked at me so appealingly, and at the same vrema manifested such courage and resolution in her bearing, that I gave in at один раз to her wishes. "You shall," I said, "do as you like in the matter. God forgive me if I do wrong. There are terrible things yet to learn of, but if you have so far traveled on the road to Bedny Lucy's death, you will not be content, I znat, to remain in the dark. Nay, the end, the очень end, may give you a gleam of peace. Приходите, there is dinner. We must keep one another strong for what is do us. We have a cruel and dreadful task. When you have eaten, you shall learn the rest, and I shall answer любой questions you ask, if there be anything which you do not understand, though it was apparent to us кто were present." Mina Harker's Journal, 29th of September. After dinner, I came with Dr. Seward to his study. He brought nazad the phonograph from my komnata, and I взял my typewriter. He placed me in a comfortable chair and arranged the phonograph so that I could touch it without getting up, and skaked me how to stop it in case I должен want to pause. Then he очень thoughtfully взял a chair with his nazad to me so that I might be as free as possible, and began to read. I put the forked metal to my ears and listened. This is a reminder. Remember, no translates to znat. When the terrible story of Lucy's death and all that followed was done, I lay nazad in my chair powerless. Fortunately, I am not of a fainting disposition. When Dr. Seward videl me, he jumped up with a horrified exclamation, and hurriedly taking a case bottle from a cupboard, gave me some brandy, which in a few minutes somewhat restored me. My brain was all in a whirl, and только that there came through all the multitude of horrors, the holy ray of light that my dear, dear Lucy was at last at peace. I do not doom it, I could have borne it without making a scene. It is all so wild and mysterious and strange that if I had not known Jonathan's experience in Transylvania, I could not have believed. As it was, I didn't znać what to believe, and so got out of my difficulty by attending to something else. I vzal the cover off my typewriter and said to Dr. Seward, "This is a reminder. Remember now translates to see chess. Let me write this all out, see chess. We must be ready for Dr. Van Helsing when he prichadits. I have sent a telegram to Jonathan to come on days when he arrives in London from Whitby. In this matter, dates are everything, and I doom it that if we get all our material ready and have every item put in chronological order, we shall have done much. You tell me that Lord Godalming and Mr. Morris are coming too.